Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give out praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh by Shemel Shai. Want to give double honors to the apostles of great men who do rule well. A salutation to the man of the hopeful and sincere elect. There's a brother Marcus out here in trend. I just want to do a little edification for the elect's sake. And the name of this lesson would be spiritual algorithm. Alright, spiritual algorithm. And the reason why I'm calling it spiritual algorithm, because you know what, let me go here first. So when you look up like social media algorithm, it says a social media algorithm is a set of rules or computer codes that sort, rank, and delivers content to your feed. Instead of showing posts in simple time order, it decides what you see based on past actions. So basically, not everybody gonna have the same feeds or clips or all these videos, shorts showing up on their feed, right? It says most users on Reddit agree that an algorithm acts as a step-by-step recipe or rule book for a computer program to complete a specific task. It says key factors of the algorithm. It says engagement, likes, comments, shares, and saves. How the system and shows and saves show the system you care about a certain topic. It says watch time, how long you stay on a video tells the app if you like it. All right, so basically what you see is based on what you show interest in. All right, you show interest in something on your social media platform, it keeps coming up. If you're somebody who like to look at horoscopes, you would always find horoscope posts coming up, and it will be as though like, oh, this came in the perfect time. No, you're always looking up horoscopes, so the chances are that when one shows up, you might think that that is the spirit showing you something, but it's just really just the algorithm. If you always looking at food stuff, you always see food stuff showing up. If you like health or news or and so forth. So that is how the social media algorithm works. But on the spiritual aspect now, the spiritual algorithm, it says a spiritual algorithm is a set of repeated rules, habits, and mental inputs that shape a person's inner life and guide them towards a specific outcome. So this is based on your daily living, your mindset, your actions while we in this flesh. It says it compares daily choices by coding inputs, meaning spiritual practices or personal belief functions, like a software that filters reality and dictates personal growth. All right, so in the spiritual sense, a spiritual algorithm is wherever you put your mind on it, wherever your spirit focus on, things are gonna come your way to either it help your spirit in a positive or affect your spirit in a negative. All right, it's gonna affect you based on your mindset and actions. All right, James chapter 4 and verse 7, it says, submit yourself therefore to Yahweh, resist the devil and he will flee from you. All right, resist the devil and he will flee from you. If you always given in your mind, your heart onto negative thoughts, guess what? Them demons, which you could equate the demons to those computer softwares or hardwares that tries to find out what you like and what you don't like, and make sure that they always put certain things in your way to make sure your mind always focus on a particular thing. Them demons gonna keep putting things in your way. That spiritual algorithm gonna be working for your mind to be going down that path onto the road of destruction. All right, so now when you realize that's all showing up on your spiritual feed, you have to be, the scriptures say the spiritual man, roughly paraphrasing, observing all things. So you have to be wise and observant and say, hey, nah, I don't like what this leading. This turning into a trend now. Let me turn back. Let me do opposite to what's going on here. This can't be right. That's why the scripture says, resist the devil and he will flee from you. It says, draw nigh unto Yahweh and he will draw nigh unto you. So the more, when you turn back, the beginning of righteousness is the moment you turn your back and say, nah, I don't want to be wicked no more. That is the beginning of righteousness. All right. And then you continue along that path. It says, cleanse your hands, ye sinners, and purify your hearts. You double-minded, you have to purify your hearts. All right. Let's say, no, as I said, it could work for the good or for the bad. So let's deal with the good first, right? Let's say you are a brother of a fearful spirit. The scripture said the Lord, Yahweh Shai, did not give us a spirit of fear. So let's say you are fearful, brother. The Lord, Yahweh Shai, gonna put you in predicaments to test your faith, so that you could to get rid of that fearful spirit. So the more he puts you in a predicament and you are afraid, simultaneously he gonna show you, hey, I here with you. I'm here with you. I'm walking with you. I will never leave you nor forsake you. And the more you realize that in every situation the Lord is there with you, you have no need to be afraid. All right, you have no need to be afraid. Guess what? That spirit of fear gonna leave you. So it works to you better, because the Lord send those things your direction to help you. Let's say you are a brother lacking faith, the same thing. The Lord gonna, and especially if you pray for faith, the Lord gonna put you, the Lord is gonna zap you with faith. All right, He gonna put you in predicaments to build your faith. All right, that spiritual algorithm, everything that comes your way gonna be to build your faith. All right. He might make you broke and then put you in a position where the only thing you could do is but have faith. You can't do nothing other than have faith. And it's gonna happen time on time again until you learn that the Lord Yahweh Shai has your back. Let's say you are a brother that has an overly emotional spirit. The Lord Yahweh Shai gonna constantly put you in positions where you're gonna have no choice but to put away those estrogenic emotions and start to be more manly, as the scripture says, gird up your manly loins. All right. So the Lord, on the positive side, the Lord Yahweh Shai gonna teach you them lessons, and they're gonna be like on a social media feed where the algorithm just keeps sending things your way, so that you say, nah, this is His spirit, this is what the spirit want me to do, so let me do this. The Lord gonna keep sending things your way for you to do good. All right. Now, let's look at it on the negative aspect. Let's say you came out of the world, and you were one who loved committing adultery, loved going after men, wives, their girlfriends, wherever the case might be, right? Because it's like a sport to you. And then you come into the truth, you're not supposed to do that, all right? But you still giving into those spirits. What would happen is them demons, they're gonna keep putting you in a predicament where you always gonna find yourself in an adulterous situation. Always. And they're gonna keep coming more subtle and subtle, more, enticing to your mind. As the scripture said, all bread is sweeter and whoremonger, until, as the scripture said, the end of sin is death. All right, the end of sin is death, because you allow them spirit to fester in your mind. So you're gonna just keep coming, opportunities just gonna keep coming, and you're gonna think that, hey, shit, like, what really going on here? All these women, wherever the case is, and you ain't gonna realize that it's them spirits putting those things in your way, for you to go off. All right. They're gonna keep putting it in your way for you to go off. All right. This is the book of Genesis chapter 4 and verse 7. It says, if thou doest well, thou shall not thou be accepted. All right. It says, and if thou doest not well, sin lieth at the door. Say, if you don't do well, sin will lie at your door, and unto thee shall be his design, he shall rule over him. So sin gonna have perfect rule over you if you continue to not do well. Sin gonna lie at your door, and guess what? You're gonna keep sending them minions to work on that spiritual algorithm to carry down that path of destruction. So in this truth, you have to do good. As the scripture says, do good and no harm shall come unto thee. You have to do good. All right? You have to do good. All right? This is the book of Galatians chapter 6 and verse 7. It says what? It says, be not deceived, Yahweh is not mocked. For whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. The scripture says, sow not up. Verse 8, it says, he that soweth to his flesh shall reap corruption, and he that soweth to his spirit shall reap everlasting life. All right? Sow not upon the furrows of unrighteousness to reap them sevenfold. Hey, you keep going after sin, sin gonna come. Sin gonna come. The Lord gonna allow them demons to have perfect rule over you. He gonna allow them demons to have perfect rule over you. Let's say you are a brother that has, an anger spirit. Everything, it always ticks you off. Guess what? Them demons gonna say, oh, so all right. So after anger is wrath. So let me keep putting things in your way, so that you will get so angry till you might kill your brother. You might want to do some manner of hurt to your brother, because you always angry. All right, you have an envious spirit. All right, because guess what? The end of envy is bloodshed. All right, so you have an envious spirit and you're not fighting that spirit. Guess what? Them minions gonna keep working. They're gonna put things in your way to make you increase in that envy, and then that envy gonna turn into anger, and that anger gonna turn into wrath, that wrath gonna turn into death. All right, that is their end goal. They're gonna keep sending things your way. What you give into, they're gonna keep sending it your way until you go off. And when you go off, you're not gonna realize you off until it's too late. You're not gonna realize you're off until it's too late. All right. This is the book of Proverbs chapter 11 and verse 27. All right. It says, he that diligently seeketh good procureth favor, but he that seeketh mischief, it shall come unto him. He that seeketh mischief, it shall come unto him. Guess what? You seek mischief. You think it's like one time you do mischief and then the Lord Yahweh Shemi and Shai and just get rid of you. The scripture says he punish you little by little. Little by little. So them demons, they're gonna keep sending mischief your way, and you're gonna keep feeding into those unholy spiritual algorithms until you finally find mischief for yourself. And you're gonna dig a hole for yourself that you can't come out of. That is why you have to be spiritual, have that spiritual eyes on, as the Lord tell the church. Let me read out this book of Revelation chapter 3 and verse 18. It says, I counsel thee to buy of me gold tried in the fire, that thou mayest be rich, and white raiment, that thou mayest be clothed, that thy shame of thy nakedness do not appear, and anoint thy eyes with eye salve, that thou mayest see. All right, so once you anoint your eyes with eye salve and you could see, then you could realize now with all these algorithms that's showing up here right now, they're trying to lead me off a precipice. Now, let me turn back. I'm not going to give into that spirit. I'm not going to feed into that spirit. Sometimes you might think that this brother always get me angry, always get me angry, always get me angry. And then you might not even realize, wait now, I'm envying this brother. When you really take note to yourself, look, I'm really envying this brother. And that envy manifesting as anger, as though the brother literally doing something like a pet peeve to literally get to me, like he personally targeted me, when the brother is oblivious to what really going on. And you just keep feeding into these spirits, keep talking into you, keep showing you scenarios where, it's like, I forget, there's a term for it. I can't remember what the term is, but where you so angry at someone that you run through scenarios of an encounter with that person, and when you meet the person, it's like A going to Z real quick. All right, because you work out so many scenarios in your mind that, guess what, the situation didn't even call for that. It wasn't even nothing that would have led A to B. But because you you germinated, you planted that seed, and that seed germinated and bloomed so much. By the time you encounter that brother or that sister, it turns into a catastrophic end. All right, I forget what was the term for that. All right, but if you really take heed to yourself, you'd realize now what I'm doing is wrong. These are unclean spirits, but them spirits gonna put them spiritual algorithms on your radar, and you're gonna keep looking at it, keep feeding into it, and not realize that, guess what, this is to your own detriment. This is to your own detriment, and you're gonna realize it when it's too late if you don't stay focused on the spirit. All right, you have to stay focused on the spirit. All right, it's like something in the world, right? You know, let's say you going and you're hanging out with your boys, but then, you know, just like that, you say, you know what, let me walk with my knife just in case something happens. And then boom, you walk with your knife, you get in a fight, you stab somebody, you end up in jail, or somebody takes a knife from you, stab you, you're in the hospital, or worst case scenario, you die. A lot of times, when you take that knife and you walk with that knife, what you're doing, you actually feeding into them unclean spirits and attracting them spirits, carrying them spirits with you. And guess what? You're going to attract negative spirits, and they're gonna lead to that outcome. But if you didn't walk with that knife, guess what? You know what happened? You wouldn't have attracted those spirits. Don't allow them unclean spirits to feed those unholy algorithms on your radar. Don't let it. Don't feed into it. Don't feed into it. If it's like, as I said, like social media, if you keep looking at something, especially the more time you spend looking at a particular video, then the algorithm gonna realize, yes, he or she loves these kind of videos, so I'm gonna keep sending them. If the spirit realize that, guess what, you allowing these thoughts to fester in your mind for a certain amount of time, they realize, yeah, let me jam him a little bit more, let me send some more, and then I will totally win him over. They're gonna come. That's why the scripture says, resist the devil and he will flee from you. All right, resist the devil and he will flee from you. All right, this Galatians chapter 5 and 17, I read it in the King James verse. It says, for the flesh lusteth against the spirit, and the spirit against the flesh. These are contrary the one to the other. It says, so that he cannot do the things that he would. Because guess what? These spirits, they're going to have a field day with you. Now, when you really take heed to what this verse saying, let's look at it in the NLT. It says, the sinful nature wants to do evil, which is just the opposite of what the spirit wants. So your flesh want to do wickedness, your spirit want to do righteousness. That is why Paul said, oh wretched man that I am. Now you have to listen to the spirit and not the flesh. It says what? And the spirit gives us desires that are opposite of what the spiritual nature desires. These two forces are constantly fighting each other, so that ye are not free to carry out your good intentions. And as the scripture says, none of the angels did he put under subjection the world to come. When you look up the word subjection, it means to be under the rule of. And to make it in the kingdom, the scripture says we have to go through much tribulation. So what are we under the rule of in this kingdom to make it into the kingdom? We under rule of the flesh. We under the rule of these unclean spirits. They have power over our flesh, our minds. They could affect us in this flesh, but in the spirit, in the heavenly body, they can't affect us no more. So right now, they have free reign over our minds where they could control us, but we have to fight. We have to fight. It's a constant fight in this flesh. So you have to fight. That's why Paul said, so fight I. You have to reset your algorithm when you realize these spirits getting power over your mind. If you are a prideful individual, guess what? Those individuals, they're gonna keep you in that prideful mindset. They're gonna make you find loopholes to justify your pride until you realize that shit, you know what? I shouldn't have been proud. I shouldn't have been proud. That is what those unclean spirits, they're gonna do to you. So we have to be cautious of how we live in this flesh. We have to be cautious, very cautious of how we live in this flesh. All right. There is the book of 2 Corinthians chapter 2 and verse 5. It says, "But if any have caused grief, he had not grieved me but in part, that I may not overcharge you all. Sufficient to such a man is this punishment, which was inflicted of many." It says, "So that contrariwise ye ought to forgive him." That is another thing we have to learn to do. Learn to forgive. We ought to rather forgive him and comfort him, lest perhaps such an one should be swallowed up with much grief. Yes, say like you have a mindset that every time somebody does something, you always want to be the one to send the axe down, lay the hammer down. Yeah, get rid of him. Suspend, expulsion, do this, do that. Guess what? That could be you being put in predicaments, as the scripture says, mercy rejoiceth over judgment. That could be you being put in predicaments to see how merciful you are. And if those spirits realize that you are a very unmerciful person, they're gonna keep putting those things in your pathway for you to sink yourself in a hole. And then when you realize you need mercy, you're gonna get it. You're not gonna get it. All right. It says, "I beseech you that," verse 7. It says, so that contrariwise that ye ought rather to forgive him and comfort him, lest perhaps one should be swallowed up with much sorrow. It says, "Wherefore I beseech you that you would conform your love towards him," not your hate, confirm your love towards him. "For to this end also did I write, that I might know the proof of you, whether ye be obedient in all things." It says, "To whom you forgive anything, I also forgive. For if I forgive anything, to whom I forgive it, for your sakes I forgive it in the person of Mashiach." So Paul basically saying, you know what? Hey, I forgiven him, so you forgive him too. And I'm doing it for your sakes, because I know if you don't forgive him, you're going to be judged. So I'm showing you how you're supposed to live. All right. Verse 11. "Lest Satan should get an advantage over us, for we are not ignorant of his devices," his algorithm. We are not ignorant of Satan's algorithm, his devices: hate, envy, strife, lack of mercy. All right. Those are all his devices to trap you, to get your spirit weighed down and you fall off the precipice into the paths of destruction. Don't be ignorant to Satan's devices. We always read verse 11, but we don't read higher up that lead into verse 11. All right? Being unmerciful, unforgiving is part of Satan's devices. He will put things in your way to make you err from the path of truth. All right? That is why the scripture says, neither give place to the devil. Don't give place to the devil. Don't be ignorant to his devices. All right? There's the final precept here. This is Philippians chapter 4 and verse 8. One of my favorite precepts, it says, "Finally, brethren, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are of good report, if there be any virtue and if there be any praise, think on these things." All right? Once it have good in it, once it have good report, once it according to the laws of Yahweh Hashem Yahushai, once it after the mindset of Yahweh Hashem Yahushai, think on those things. That's why we always have to consider ourselves. All right? So with that, I hope it was edifying. I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh Hashem Yahushai. I want to give double honor to the apostles of great mercy and do rule well. Salutation to the men of your plan, Saint Select. This is Brother Marcus out in Trinidad saying shalom and stay strong. Shalom.